Since the baton was passed, I've been down, cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
Welcome to another episode of Dad is Not a Noun. My name is Ishmael, changing the narrative for men of color of fatherhood, as well as changing the narrative on the things I care about. And today, what I care about, great guest, great brother, man of many talent, a devoted husband, a devoted father of two beautiful daughters, a teacher, as well as he owns his own publishing company called SeriousPensPublishing. And he's here with me to talk about but he's been doing it for a hot minute, but the world finally seeing his work. He's going to talk about the world of runners. I got the good brother, Paul Darden, with me. How you doing, brother? How's your heart?
I'm doing good. And the heart is doing real well right now. Doing real well.
That's good, man. Because the reason why I asked that question, because I'm all big about mental health, and especially in our community. So when I posed that question, it changed the dynamic of the conversation. So that's good to hear that your heart is doing well. Is there any challenges and things that you're going through right now? Because I know, your transition from the Bronx to New York, from New York to Atlanta. So just talk about how you're doing right now through that transition.
Transition is good. Growing up in New York, being there all my life, it's a real fast pace. So I'm used to that fast pace. More so used to being able to get up, go wherever I want, whenever I want. I can walk there. You can take the train. You can take the bus. You can drive. Making that transition to being here for the moment, and I'm not able to walk wherever I want to go. I'm not able to just get up and make that move. So no bodega, no 24-hour corner store, nothing like that out here. So I'm not in Atlanta, by the way. I'm in Loganville and Gwinnett County right now.
Okay.
So being that it's not a challenge. It just takes getting used to, right?
Right.
'Cause we get so comfortable with where we are, and as we get comfortable with where we are, we tend to just want to stay there. And that's not how growth happens. You have to go into those uncomfortable, unfamiliar situations, and then you really gotta push yourself. And so that's where I'm at the moment. And I'm also glad you mentioned the mental health part, because as creating this series, making sure that I stay true to life, making sure that as I have characters, these young characters that really reflect my student body, but also the friends that I grew up with. When we talk about mental health, it's super important that people are cognizant of their mental status, and super important that people are also cognizant of when they're not doing their very best, when they need a break, when they need to reset, when they need to probably withdraw from certain things or someone. And my characters and the characters in the story, they go through that because my students go through it. We all go through it. You live long enough, you're going to hit a time where something just doesn't feel right. And sometimes you can pinpoint it, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can really, if with honest reflection, you can turn around and you can say, man, these actions that I've taken have brought me to this point. And sometimes you're gonna be like, I'm not really sure where this is coming from. So that's extremely important that we're aware and that we're actively trying to take care of ourselves physically, but mentally is so important.
Definitely. And that's a perfect segue to welcome to the world of runners. I know you broke it down a little bit, and often running kind of has a bad stigma because we're always the idea of we're running away from something. But I love this just journey of the character because it's kind of similar to your story of how you running through adversity. So just dial it in for me. Tell me your story a little bit and how that it kind of equates to the story of the character, the main character.
So like most authors and most creators in general, we draw from our own life experiences. Sometimes it's really intentional, and sometimes it's not intentional, where you are creating a character, you're creating a story, you're creating a world, you're creating an environment, and it takes someone to point out to you that this is or possibly a reflection of who you are, where you've come from. And so for me, initially, I wanted to create something that was a full embodiment of the students that I teach and that I work with, because they are always intrigued about their cultures. They want to learn about their histories. And because I teach American history, the answer has always been no, we're not going to learn about you, whether you're from Canada, whether you're from Nigeria, whether you're from Mexico. We teach from an American history Eurocentric perspective. And so their cultures are not included in the curriculum, or if we do mention them, it's a footnote. There's no immersion in it. And at some point as a kid, you have to wonder, if I'm in school for 4, 8 years or whatever the case may be, then not hearing about myself, I might start to wonder, did my culture represent or do anything worth talking about? And so for me, this series really is a reflection of me growing up, in the sense that I was that kid. I remember wanting to learn and wanting to hear about my culture and other cultures, and it wasn't present. However, just because of the way I was raised, I was always that kid who crossed the aisle, extended my hand, and said, "Hey, how you doing? Where you from?" I was intrigued about other cultures. I was intrigued about where people came from, their languages, the foods they ate, and things of that nature. So this is truly an extension of me just growing up. And growing up in New York City, I've had an eclectic group of friends from all over the world. I've been introduced to so many different cultures, different foods, different languages, different dialects, and then sub dialects and sub languages and cultures within those cultures, that I'm super proud to present a lot of the material that I'm presenting in a manner in which it's helping reflect a positive light on cultures that we don't often get to talk about or learn about in general.
What I love is you show so much diversity in your cover. Like, is that intentionally? Because one of my favorites, the cover that we're looking at with the little kid, and you see the autism heart there. Talk about that.
Oh man, I'm glad you brought that up. So first and foremost, I got to be completely honest. I never looked at or considered anything from the autism spectrum. I don't have anyone in my family that I know of who's on the spectrum, even though they say, like, I guess everyone's on the spectrum in some form or another, but not to the severity where you need to be monitored in adult assistance on a consistent basis and things of that nature. I've probably had students that I didn't know that were autistic in some form or fashion. Again, not on the severe end of the spectrum. And then I was introduced to students who were diagnosed with autism. They were on the spectrum, and across the spectrum, I should say. And it really changed my perspective, because just as an educator, I'm like, wow, I never considered that I would have someone who was autistic in my class. And then after getting to know them, changing my perception of who they are, their capabilities, what they can, and I'm not even going to say cannot do, what they can do, right? And being ill informed, and then getting to know them and seeing the smiles and having conversations with them and realizing there I to for me, I can honestly say, not even to a certain degree, but just honestly say, it's like a lot of them are the absolute best of who we are, right? And from an educational standpoint, then it starts to click in my brain. We often forget about them in their entirety. We don't incorporate them in absolutely anything from an educational standpoint, and roughly from a societal standpoint as well. And so for me, not only wanted to share cultures, but really to share their stories, right? And I have parents who I can only imagine what their life is like, where they are working with their children whom they love, and the difficulties. Many of my uh, parents who did have students who are autistic um, were single parents. So not wondering, do they even get a reprieve or a moment to just like decompress, right? And so making sure that when I told this story, I said, you know what, I got to add them in, because they were some of the funniest, articulate, just amazing students, but also being true to life where we show what parents are going through, what parents are going through, and showing what students go through when they're in school, the beautiful parts and the ugly parts, whether they're shining in the classrooms and we don't often get to hear about them, or where they're the brunt of a joke or being verbally abused and accosted by other students who just pick on them for whatever reason. So I'm super proud to have that. I love, love, love when I talk to parents and interact with um, CEOs, professional people who, when they're taking a look at it, they point right to it and go, I have a child that's autistic.
Wow.
Like, oh, I have a brother or a sister or somebody in my family, and they're taken aback, and then they immediately start to share their stories. And to hear them go, they're proud to see that this is actually in what we're doing. It just means the world to me.
And that's awesome, man. Also, how I love what you're doing, because right there we're on your another part of your page of how you're trying to connect the dots of child, parent, and teacher with your story, with your book. Like, I
Mhm.
love that you have a teacher guide. Talk about that.
So the teacher guy is fundamental. I'm an educator. I'm an educator at heart. I'm always educating, whether it's students or people around me, just in general. I love having conversations about education, regardless of what the topic is. I'm always willing to engage in listening and learning from different perspectives. And so for me, this is a natural step. We have an an abundant an amount of students who are graduating from public and charter schools alike, and they're still illiterate. And we really need to change that. Reading is fundamental. I don't care if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a judge, a politician, professional athlete. You have to be able to read, process, and understand, right? Because first and foremost, you're going to sign a contract somewhere, and you don't want someone to take advantage of you. That's first and foremost. And two, just for overall comprehension, like, you just need to know how to read. And with that said, I wanted to tell a great story. I wanted to tell a compelling story. I wanted to have that adventure. I wanted to have something that kept people on the edge of their seats. I wanted to have something that students can learn from. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure that students are educated, because it's a fundamental principle of American society, right? It's the cornerstone of what we do. When we talk about all those freedoms that we have, it's invested in education, right? And so the other telltale part of that is not just education, but reading. History tells us that those who were able to read and learn, those were the ones who were able to push through and make things happen. And those who could not read, those are the ones who were kept at bay, right? And so this teacher guide for me is a proud undertaking where teachers across the country is Common Core line from New York City to California. They can take it right into the classroom. Students can work on central ideas. They can do summaries, creating student autonomy. Students can rewrite. We have where they can rewrite scenes, for particularly for my students who are always doodling and drawing and absolutely fantastic at drawing, and even for my students who are on their way to being fantastic at drawing, having them recreate scenes where you just read this chapter. What scene really stood out to you? Let's see you pin this one, draw it. Right? Let's make a poster of it, because drawing is a fundamental skill, and it's something that we, right now in the educational system, we shun. I know we have AI technology, and I know we're still using an antiquated system in school where we're preparing kids for jobs that really no longer exist. I can't think of a job now that's going to ask you to find the central idea of text, right? Uh,
Very good.
but nevertheless, it's still a requirement in school. They're still taking PSATs and etc. So this teacher's guide is really a form of allowing students to find something that they love to read and then bringing it into the classroom. So it's no different than any other novel that has been written, with the exception of after the kid read it, they just put it down, right? And also making sure that this is something that's comprehensive where teachers can bring into the classroom right now. And plus, there's the literacy kick, again, in all 50 states, where they're trying to get kids to read. And the challenge of getting a kid to read versus being on their phone is a tough one. However, that doesn't mean it can't be done. And that's one of the reasons why I feel it's essential that we start presenting kids with options for things to read and allowing them to explore and let them turn through the pages and say, yes, I like this book, I want to read more. No, I want to find something else. And so this is absolutely, this is a fun project for me. And I also got to say, for my administrators out there, I know a lot of schools funding is tied to testing. And so you don't lose anything by engaging with my material. So not only are they reading, learning new words, but we also have test prep inside our teacher's guides. So from PSAT to AP content to general education to kids who have 504s, ICTs, special needs, like, we're creating so much material, and it's not just in classroom. We're also adding hands-on activities where kids can get up and be physical, because I don't know about you, but even as an adult, I don't want to sit in a room for 2 or 3 hours and just hear somebody talk to me.
Seriously.
Sometimes I want to get up and move. In my classroom, I create an environment where we can get up and move, and we can do hands-on activities and team building things. And we just take those team building things and we tweak them and we turn them into educational learning moments as well.
And that's important. You creating those learning moments, and I think that's important as an educator, as a parent, as a mentor, is creating those memories.
Mm.
But also just talk about, like, as a writer, because I love what you do with the story, is that you tell the story through different lenses of the character. And how do you just keep it continuity of the story overall when you're creating, like you're looking through one character and then another character, but you keep that story consistent?
So I got to be completely honest. When writing this first novel, I knew there were rules, but I broke all of them, right? And I
Okay.
broke all of them because I was in that creative space and I did what I wanted to do, right? For me, if I was to liken it to anything, I would liken it to the American Revolution. Because,
Mm,
I love history, so I teach history. So I would liken it to the American Revolution in the sense that the British had this idea of you're supposed to fight war this one way as gentlemen. You step onto the battlefield, you take turns shooting at each other. And the colonists are like, no, we are going to shoot at you and then we're going to run and we're going to hide, right?
yeah,
And they learned this style from fighting the natives.
yeah,
And so for me, it was exactly that. You're supposed to write from this perspective. The great novels that have come out in the 20th century, the highest selling novels, they write from this second or third person perspective. You don't switch. That's considered taboo. You don't switch from first person, second, to third person. And why not? It's my novel. It's my
yeah,
book. These are my characters. I'm going to do whatever I want. And going back to streamlining, then going back to make sure that, okay, we can see this through this person's eyes. We can see this. Okay, this scene lines up. This matches, and also just planning for the other the other 6 novels in this particular case. I'm saying, okay, so if we do this here, how is this going to play out in novel 2? How is this? I don't want to give too much and say, okay, we're doing this in novel 1, and then just let it fall by the wayside, because a lot of authors actually do that. We want to make sure that we tie up loose ends. So really just having fun with it and understanding completely I'm the creator. I'm
yeah.
the creator of this, and I can do whatever I want. And also being cognizant of this is for who it's for. So the people that are going to love it, they're going to love it, and the people who are not going to love it, they're not going to love it. And I'm fine with both. I'm welcome to criticism, and I welcome it from all sides.
And I think the beauty of the book is that it resonates to adults, because I see in the reviews on Amazon, you got grown as folks loving the book as well as teenagers. So how do you kind of balance that too, where you want to make it for kids, but adults are indulgent to it too?
I think that's the beauty of art, right? Where when you have an intended audience, and then you have an audience that you may not have intended, and they both love it. And so for me, the balance between the two worlds is giving this younger generation characters that they can hone in on, and they can say, this sounds like me and my friends. This sounds like something that actually happened in my school. This sounds like something that I've experienced, or this is something that I'm going to experience. I know what's coming down the line. And running in tandem with that, for adults to read and say, this reminds me of my childhood. This is something that I've experienced myself. This is something that I remember. And you kind of go into that time machine, and it can take you back in time, and you can put yourself in middle school and high school and say, this is me and my friends. This is me and so and so. And you can call them, you can text them and say, look, I'm reading this book and this character reminds me so much of you. They have your wit, they have your spunkiness, or maybe it's they're completely and utterly reckless, just like you, and they seem so chaotic and out of control, but they're still in control. And just finding that balance, because really just bridging the gap between two worlds. And I think that, and the last thing I'll say too is, a lot of times we forget that adults are readers too. We gear everything towards the younger generation, where even to this day, where if you have a book fair, they have book fairs in elementary and middle school, and then they stop in high school, as if high school kids don't read, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I want to see the middle schoolers read, but I want to see high schoolers pick up books too. They still love to read. They still love to dive into great stories. And for some reason, I feel like we pretend that they don't. I'm not sure exactly why, but I'm here to fix that.
And you are doing that, bro. Also, how do you balance running your own published company, teacher, and being a husband and a father? How you balance?
Uh, very careful, very carefully. It's tough. I'll tell you this. I remember one time I was sitting down writing, and my youngest daughter, she just walked in and she closed the laptop. I'm in the middle of this deep thought. I'm like writing this scene. I'm like, yeah, okay, I want to do this. I want to do that. And she just closed my laptop. She grabbed me by the hand and she said, Daddy, come on, let's go play. And in my head, I'm like, I'm working on this so I can give you the life that I wish I had. And for her, she's like, I don't care. The life I want is the life I have right now. And she just wanted to spend time with me. And so it's balancing that family life is really important, where I'm not staying up until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, where I'm so fatigued and tired, where I can't enjoy being a dad and a father and a husband, doing all those things. And so it's a real tough line, because I know where I want to go. I know where this company is going, the direction that we're going, but I also gotta embrace the moment, because I don't want to be one of those fathers who gets lost in their work, blink, and then all of a sudden my kids are grown, and then they have that story of a valid narrative of saying, well, you were physically there, but mentally you weren't there. You wasn't emotionally present. Like, I don't want to be that father. I don't want to be the person who is trying to build a multi-million-dollar brand and business and then actually achieve it, but lose my family in the process.
And the one thing too was what was it? Somebody said something wise, that you only have your kids for 18 summers. And if you look at that to that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
time go by so fast.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think every parent, of course, let me backtrack. Every good parent, because there's a lot of people who are parents, and some of y'all are not good, but well, that's a different conversation for another time. But parents know, right? They're born and they're in diapers, and they need you for absolutely everything. And then you blink, and all of a sudden they have opinions and they have thoughts. And then you blink again, and they're hurting, they're crying because they have to deal with life. And you blink again, and they're standing over you, taking care of you, right? They're watching out, they're telling you, well, you shouldn't eat that and you shouldn't do that. And so time flies, and being present, living in the moment, but also enjoying it, right? Because we get one shot at this. We get one shot. We get one, and not even life, but we get one shot at raising them, right? You get one shot at um, this idea of family, and you don't want to take it for granted. You want to be there every step of the way. You want to be present. You want to get it right. For all the times you fail and falter, you want to get it right as much as possible.
And that's awesome, because I to see the direct parallels to your story of being a father and a family man, and to the stories you're right. And you just said that in a nutshell. It's about the moments.
Mm-hmm. And I think the characters are going to reflect this too, because as we dive into the characters and we look at them, with their powers and all that they can do, right? There's still the elements of they're still children at the end of the day. And as they develop this cohesive family unit with their extended family, as they meet each other, we're still going to explore their relationship with their actual parents. For those of them that still have their parents with them, for those of them who might lose their parents on the journey, for those of them who gain parents on the journey, we're going to explore that fundamental side, because at the end of the day, with this particular series, Rise of the Runners, as they're racing towards their futures, we're also taking a look at their past and their presence.
And that's dope, man. I got two more questions for you. One, are there some of the characteristics of your daughters in some of the characters?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's one of those things where you may not be intentionally doing it, but then when you look in subconscious, you go, yeah, that's my kid, right? But then as a dad of two girls, I can think of every father on the planet that has girls, and you go, okay, I can see these elements. I can see these elements in them. As fathers, you can look and go, oh, that's my daughter sometimes, right there. That's her. That's her. And so it's a joy. And then sometimes it's like, this is not her yet, but this will be, right? Because again, as fathers, we have what we have now with our children, and we look into the future and say, this is where we want them to go, this is where they're going, and we're looking forward to seeing them get there, reach those goals.
And that's so true, man. And then the last question, what does the logo, what's the symbol? What does that mean? The symbol, the logo.
So the logo is really a felt pen and an eternal flame. And
Mm.
I had to really think about it. I found it seemed very generic, and I had to tweak it to make it my own. But Serious Pens Publishing is exactly what it sounds like. We write serious stories. We take things seriously. More importantly, we take the pen serious, and we take it serious for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, everything that we have today starts out as words and it ends up on paper somehow, some format. And with that said, when we put out a novel, when we put out a book, we want people to know that we're serious about them, their educational well-being, their mental well-being, their physical well-being, and we really want to speak to a general and wide audience, right? Because at the end of the day, for all the differences that we do have, we all like to be entertained. We all want to not only be entertained, but we like to laugh and enjoy life. And so this is just another extension of that, where we're just going to do it through the literary elements.
And you're definitely doing that. And so I know I said I only had two questions.
Yeah.
The last question is, what's next? What do we see in the future? Do we see a audio book? Do we see animation? What's next?
What's next for us? First and foremost is novel 2, The Course. Hopefully, we're going to have that out by the end of the year. We have Rise of the Runners, Winds of All Grant, that's going through final editing right now. So we introduce Hebrew, Creole, and Spanish. So that's been an amazing undertaking for us. And once we get through that second novel, what's next? We definitely want to do animation at some point. And the ultimate end goal, we want to have this 7 books, 7 blockbuster films. And Dante Elliott is a character that kids around the world can relate to. And as people start to see their nationalizing flags represented inside of the stories, these characters can also branch off and have their own stories and backstories as well. So we're thinking global,
Mm.
as no pun intended, but as the runners race across America, we now have fans in Canada, we have fans in Africa and the UK, and fans in Barbados, and it's just growing globally. People are connecting with it, and we just want to see this on a big screen.
I do too, man, and I'm loving it. I'm a big fan of what you do, man. From day one when we connected a couple of years ago, I've been following you and what you've been doing. This is great stuff. Um, what advice do you have for those dads out there? What's some words of wisdom you have?
Go for it. From the dads out there, go for it. It's It's a daunting task being parents, because we always wonder in the back of our head if we're doing it right, if we're getting this thing called parenting right. And you just got to go for it. Be present physically. Don't be scared to laugh and joke with your kids. Don't be scared to get on the floor and roll around. Don't be scared to enjoy them while they're young. Love them, protect them, guide them. And as they get older, just know, um, no matter how many regrets of I woulda, coulda, shoulda, you did your best, and just keep doing your best.
That's dope, man. I appreciate you. And how can people find you?
You can find me at Serious Pens Publishing on all social media handles, and you can literally find me and contact me via SeriousPensPublishing.com. So company numbers up there, email to contact, and everything is up there. So yeah.
Dope. And all those links will be in the description below. And when is more drip coming out, man? I see the socks are sold out, the hats. When the next stock of the drip's coming?
We're working on that. We're gonna try to have it out before the end of this year. We have a navy blue and white hat, then we had a white and pink, and we had a black and yellow. So those are like a limited edition exclusive hats. The socks will also be out again, and right now we're looking at t-shirts as well. So,
all right. So make sure you follow him on social media. You have a newsletter too? Do you have a thing where people can, like, when you give an update, what's going on yet?
not yet, but for the most part, when you're looking for updates, you'll find it on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook as well, Serious Pens Publishing. And as we continue to grow and drop new things, all world exclusives are pretty much going to come through Instagram. And we're going to start a YouTube page where I'll be reading the book too. So I know a lot of people asked about audiobooks. However, because of technology, books now read themselves to a lot of different platforms, but we definitely want to do a dramatic reading. So different people to play different characters, have music in the background, possibly doing still images. So again, that teacher in me, because we can bring it to the classroom, and for kids who do struggle reading, we still want them to be able to enjoy the book, but we still also want them to be able to read along and follow along as well.
All right, man. That's dope, man. So again, make sure you follow him. This has been another amazing conversation here on the podcast. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And we're out. Peace.